Sup, you beautiful bastards. Hope you're having a fantastic Tuesday. Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, and let's just jump into it. And the first thing we're going to talk about today is the news surrounding Martin Shkreli. Now, we've talked about Martin on the show in the past. He is no stranger to controversy. He's a 34-year-old former pharma executive, otherwise known as a pharma bro. He's the head of numerous pharmaceutical companies, most prominently Retrophin and Turing. And if you do remember Martin, you remember that he was mainly known for procuring the rights to a drug called Daraprim. It's used to treat AIDS and cancer patients, and you may remember that he raised the price of one pill from $13.50 to $750. And so just instantly, overnight, he became the face of the pharmaceutical industry's perceived greed. But on this specific part of the story, I do want to point out that what Shkreli did here is not an outlier situation. Like, this has been an established business model in the pharmaceutical industry. And to fully dive into that, it would take an entire video. What I would recommend, there is a fantastic docu-series on Netflix called Dirty Money. The third episode looks into a company called Valeant. I highly recommend it, but you will also leave that episode feeling furious. Understand, I'm not saying that what he was doing was not horrible. I just think that it's important that we understand that it's more widespread than just one person. Now, that said, while the massive price increase was the reason Shkreli got the spotlight, it's not why the spotlight stayed on him. In the middle of all this, he was arrested by the FBI in September of 2015 for securities and wire fraud charges completely unrelated to the price hike. And reportedly, his arrest was for actions relating to his time at his investment firm, specifically MSMB Capital, MSMB Healthcare, as well as his time at Retrophin. And he was accused of running a Ponzi-like scheme. According to prosecutors, between 2009 and 2014, when Shkreli ran Retrophin, he used the company's cash and stock to pay back investors for money that he lost at his investment firm, also saying that he lied about the performance of the two hedge funds he controlled. And that led to August 4th, 2017, where he was found guilty of 2 counts of securities fraud and 1 count of conspiracy to commit securities fraud. Shkreli was then released on a $5 million bail, but then he actually had to end up going back to jail. This because Shkreli posted something about Hillary Clinton on his Facebook, and the judge said that it was threatening. Shkreli had posted, "The Clinton Foundation is willing to kill to protect its secrets. So on Hillary Rodham Clinton's book tour, try to grab a hair from her. We'll pay $5,000 per hair obtained from Hillary Clinton." He claimed it was satire, but that wasn't enough for the judge. Then, on February 26, a judge ruled that Shkreli was responsible for $10.4 million in losses for defrauding investors. The judge's ruling saying all the money that was invested with Shkreli amounting to $6.4 million must be considered a loss. Also adding that Shkreli was responsible for another $4 million in losses for trying to artificially boost the stock price of Retrophin, that by attempting to stop investors from selling their shares in the company. And the defense against this from Shkreli's attorney was essentially, because his investors eventually ended up ahead, he shouldn't have to pay back anything. Now, the ruling there doesn't determine how much money Shkreli owes the government, but rather the figure here really matters because it's to calculate how long Shkreli's recommended sentence would be. Attorney Matthew Schwartz explaining, "In Shkreli's case, if the government is right that the losses are between $9.5 million to $25 million, then there will be a 20-level increase to the applicable sentencing guidelines. Whereas if Shkreli is right, the loss amount would be 0. A 20-level difference in the sentencing guidelines could easily mean a difference of literally decades in prison." But also, as John Coffey points out, he's the director on the Center of Corporate Governance at Columbia University Law School, federal judges no longer have to follow the guidelines and they are only advisory. The judge has great discretion as to the sentence she imposes. She could recognize that he is a first offender and give him modest time, or she could place more emphasis on the amount of the loss and his unrepentant attitude. Then, on February 28th, Shkreli's lawyers file a number of documents with the court asking the judge to sentence Shkreli to only 12 to 18 months in prison. That filing also including a letter from Shkreli to the judge. I'll link to it down below, but some of the key parts. "Despite the jury's verdict, I maintain that I never intended to actually harm anyone. I wanted to be more than I was. I exaggerated if I felt I had any basis to make the claim. I am now, however, a more self-confident and secure person. The demons that haunted me, the root cause of my insecurity in my life, no longer all exist. I have learned a very painful lesson." Then finishing his letter by asking mercy from the judge, saying, "I promise to be more careful, open, and honest in my business dealings so that I never again have to hear people who once had faith in me and trusted me testify or complain that I misled them or let them down terribly. Just as important, however, is my pledge to your honor that if you find it appropriate to impose a sentence that does not include an extended period of incarceration, I will do my absolute best to use my skills and whatever talents I have been blessed with for the betterment of humanity. I honestly believe that I can contribute and really make a difference if your honor gives me a chance." And all of that brings us to this week, where the judge ruled that Shkreli owes the government $7.36 million for his crimes. Now, Shkreli's attorney has previously claimed that Shkreli no longer has any cash left, and so as a result, the judge has ruled that he must forfeit his interest in several substitute assets. This including $5 million in an E-Trade brokerage account that secured his release bond, Shkreli's stake in Viera Pharmaceuticals, which was originally Shkreli's company Turing Pharmaceuticals, the rights to the Lil Wayne album The Carter 5, a Picasso painting, and the famed Wu-Tang album Once Upon a Time in Shaolin that he purchased. And so, of course, following this announcement, there was mainly a focus on the Wu-Tang album, but with that album, there are also controversies around it. One, how much is it actually worth? Shkreli paid $2 million for it. At one point, he put it up on eBay. The bidding went over $1 million, but the sale was never officially confirmed. There's also a controversy involving U-God and Method Man. They're two members of the Wu-Tang Clan, and they have both said that Once Upon a Time in Shaolin was not an authorized Wu-Tang Clan album. And so this could mean the album is worthless or at least a lot less valuable. But either way, the value of the assets will be applied to the amount that Shkreli owes the government as of now. This pending the resolution of any third-party claims to the assets. Also, as of right now, Shkreli still has it. The government won't actually seize the assets until Shkreli expectedly appeals his conviction, which, that is an important thing to point out. This is only part of the equation. This Friday, Shkreli will actually be sentenced. And it will be very interesting to see what kind of sentence he actually gets. Will it be close to the 12 to 18 months his lawyers asked for, or are we talking double-digit years? But with all of that said, I want to pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts on this? But from that, I want to share some stuff I love today, and today in Awesome brought to you by Postmates. Postmates, of course, a fantastic and convenient delivery on-demand app. You want something from the store, a restaurant, boom, open up the app, get it delivered to your house, your work, your wherever. And for me personally, it saves me so much time, it has just become vital to my life. So if you want to check it out, like many from the nation already have, go to postdefranco.com, download the app, use promo code PhillyD in the app. I didn't know my voice went that high anymore. But enter promo code PhillyD and they will give you $100 in free delivery credit. And the first bit of awesome is actually just me answering a question that I got a lot yesterday. Phil, what is wrong with your eye? Over the weekend, I had the very awesome experience of throwing up, and I apparently burst a blood vessel in my eye. From the front yesterday, it kind of just looked like irritation, but if I look up, maybe you still see it. So there you go. You can stop asking why my face looks a little more fucked up than usual. Then we got a teaser for Lost in Space on Netflix, and it actually looks pretty damn good. Then we had a video from How to Dad explaining the difference between Australia and New Zealand. Then we got the trailer for season 2 of Legion. Then we had Life Noggin that put out a video involving one of my deep-seated fears since I live in California. How much damage can an earthquake do? Spoiler alert, more than you'd like if you live where the earthquake is. Then, if you're a fan of Weird Al Yankovic and also Hamilton, we have the Hamilton polka. People know I'm a massive fan of Hamilton. There were a lot of people asking me to share this, so I'm sharing it just for that sake. But I'll be honest, I don't want to be a hater here. All it made me do is want to listen to the original. And so I did. So the net result was an awesome win. And if you want to see the full versions of everything, I just shared the secret link of the day, anything at all. Links, as always, are in the description down below. Then let's knock out some quickies. We had Emma Watson in the news because she was photographed with a new tattoo at an Oscars after party. The tattoo just said Time's Up, which obviously shows support to the Time's Up movement. But one of the big reasons it was in the news is that everyone started making fun of her because the punctuation wasn't there where it should have been. And in a response, Emma Watson tweeted, "Fake tattoo proofreading position available. Experience with apostrophe is a must." And that's literally the story. That's all it was. A temporary tattoo didn't have the proper punctuation. That's literally it. And what's actually funny is that by it being messed up, it got way more news coverage. Then in drug news, the Center for Disease Control had bad news for us today. The CDC released a vital signs report that shows that the opioid epidemic in the United States is not slowing down. It appears that over the last 14 months, opioid overdoses have increased by 30% in the States. Then we had the dating app Bumble making news. This for now reportedly banning its users from posting firearm photos on their dating profile. But also, if you read past the headline, there are exceptions, saying users in military or law enforcement, if they are in uniform, that's fine. And then let's talk about the updates around the massive gun control debate in Florida. In the past 4 days, we've seen a ton happen in Florida's Senate. Florida lawmakers in the Senate even holding a rare weekend session where for 8 hours on Sunday, they debated over a new gun control law, SB 7026. This then spilled over into Monday where they debated the law more and they ended up actually passing it 20 to 18. Now, an important note here is even though it passed, it still has to go through the House and then the governor has to sign it before March 9th. And so that brings us to the question, what is in 7026? Why is it being described as a divisive law? We're seeing extreme conservatives and many Democrats opposing the bill, but at the same time, we're seeing a majority of Republicans and a sizable minority of Democrats voting for the bill. Well, it appears it's because the law does things both sides have wanted to get done. I'll give you a top-level TLDR version of 7026. It enacts a 3-day waiting period on most firearm purchases. It increases the age to 21 to buy any firearm, a ban on bump stocks, $400 million in funding towards mental health and school safety measures, a revision to the school marshal program, which we'll jump on in a second, the ability to remove firearms from people under certain circumstances. Okay, so first thing up, the marshal program. Originally, Florida was going to just outright allow teachers to be armed in schools under the school marshal program. The program was widely unpopular with Democrats, as well as Governor Rick Scott, who people believed would veto it if it actually ended up on his desk. And so to fix that, Senator Rene Garcia proposed an amendment this weekend. The program would change. It's now called the Coach Aaron Feist Guardian Program. And it would change who could carry a firearm on campus, saying excluded from participating in the Coach Aaron Feist Guardian Program are individuals who exclusively perform classroom duties as classroom teachers. So essentially, if you're just a full-time teacher, you cannot participate. But let's say you're a librarian who maybe teaches one class, or you're a coach, you would be in this program. But there's there's also an exception here. Current service members and current/former law enforcement personnel can be exclusively a teacher on campus and be armed if they want to be. This exception also including JROTC instructors. The program is also opt-in. A school district and their sheriff have to agree to establish this program. Otherwise, a school can just use a traditional school resource officer. And once a decision is made, it's not mandatory, it's all volunteers. Those volunteers will also need to pass a psychological exam by the Department of Law Enforcement, as well as have 132 approved hours of firearm safety and proficiency training. They also must continue to do training and pass subsequent tests. And out of the $400 million in the increased spending, this program would get $67 million. Then on the 3-day waiting period, regardless of if we're talking about a handgun, a rifle, a shotgun, there are exceptions. Also, big note here is the new set of rules only applies to purchases with a firearms dealer. So this does not cover private party sales and transfers. The law would technically be a 3-day waiting period, or if your background check comes back clean, whichever comes first. And a note here is that in Florida, they must contact the Department of Law Enforcement on top of the standard federal NICS check. There are also additional exceptions for those who have a concealed carry permit and if you have a hunting license. On bump stocks, owning, buying, selling, or importing a bump stock would be illegal. And they describe a bump stock as, quote, a conversion kit, a tool, an accessory, or a device used to alter the rate of fire of a firearm to mimic automatic weapon fire, or which is used to increase the rate of fire to a faster rate than is possible for a person to fire such semi-automatic firearm unassisted by a kit, a tool, an accessory, or a device. And of course, one of the biggest points of this bill, the ability to take firearms away from certain people. With this, law enforcement agencies would have an expedited process to obtain a court order temporarily restricting a person's access to firearms and ammunition. If this passes, when police get notifications of threats within the last 12 months, they can take away someone's arms and ammo and prohibit them from obtaining more. Also, law enforcement must, quote, make a good faith effort to provide notice to a family or household member of the respondent and to any known third party who may be at risk of violence. And things the police can use to take someone's firearms away include mental health history, prior restraining orders, recurring use or threat of violence towards someone, even including things like drug history. And if your weapons are taken away in this manner, it also allows you to petition the court to get them back. This following a timely court process to prove that they are indeed fit to have their weapons. And then as far as the funding, the $400 million we talked about, we already mentioned the $67 million. $18.3 million is supposed to go to new mobile crisis teams, allowing for better and quicker responses when mental health care is needed. $69 million in additional mental health assistance to school districts, $6.2 million and then $500,000 annually for mental health first aid training to teachers across the state, as well as $100 million for additional school resource officers. And so that in general is 7026, and unsurprisingly, there were a variety of reactions to this. Coming from one voice in particular, we saw the Florida Sheriff's Association speak out against this bill, and specifically they were critical of the funding provision, saying that it didn't go far enough, saying to pay for school resource officers in all of the roughly 4,000 schools in Florida would actually cost $400 million alone. But in this bill, they're just getting a quarter of that. But as of right now, that is where we are, and so I want to pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts around this story? This is saying that a good compromise leaves everyone unhappy. Do you see that to be true here? Are we seeing a good compromise? What don't you like? What do you like? But yeah, let me know in those comments down below. And that's where I'm going to end today's show. And remember, if you liked this video, you like what I'm trying to do on this channel, you want to support independent news coverage, of course, go to DeFrancoElite.com, join our subscription there. On top of obviously supporting what we're making now, what we're building, you also get a lot of exclusives, that including exclusive Q&As, exclusive town halls, early general content, also access to the private Discord, posters, mugs, all the goods. But with that said, of course, as always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you tomorrow.